All right, what's up, Saints and Patriots? Yes, believe it or not, I am still in the land of the living. And thanks to the likes of Daniel Miller and my friend Doc Green, the amazing Doc Green, fellow Raging Elephants radio broadcaster, able to deal with the technical issues that have kept me off the air for so long. But we wanted to break in the middle of the day to talk about some special breaking news, special report on the Republican Party of Texas Convention that's happening only the Lord knows where. And to help us with the analysis, the information that is getting on the ground, president of the Texas Nationalist movement, it's Daniel Miller. Daniel, welcome back to RER.
It's good to be back, Claver. It's good to have you back.
It is. It's been extremely frustrating, and I have to actually give you and Doc and the Most High God, the Lord Jesus, credit for doing something that really was kind of miraculous to get these technical issues out of the way. And we'll be doing these special reports, trying to get me back into the swing of things. And getting back to a full 2-hour program. It's going to take a little while to do that. There's a lot of things that's been going on at Raging Elephants Radio I need to catch you up on, but let's get immediately to the special report in the news. Daniel, the Republican Party of Texas Convention 2020 is an absolute total mess. What are you hearing?
Yeah, it's pretty tough. They made the move, and I'm not going to go into all the backstory. I'm pretty sure everyone out there is well aware of what's transpired with Houston, the city of Houston pulling the contract and basically leaving the RPT kind of wandering in the wilderness for their convention. And so they made a choice to go virtual, and they had really a couple of days to spin it up. And it's been a mess. As of right now, I think right now, 2.5 hours ago, they were supposed to gavel in. I think they did gavel in, but unfortunately, none of the delegates are getting their credentials. So it's they had to gavel in, stand at ease, and while thousands of people are kind of waiting in their homes, in their offices, or in some places, they gathered into social gatherings to participate together, and everyone is just simply waiting.
Is there any place here in Houston where there are potential delegates? I mean, is it sort of a hybrid kind of thing? Because, for instance, I know that TJ Scott came down here. He drove down here yesterday to present his resolution on impeaching Greg Abbott. I'm going to try to do a special report with him a little bit later on today. So he did meet in front of the Resolutions Committee and wait 9 hours in order to present his resolution, to argue for his resolution, to lay it out. It seems like it's some sort of hybrid thing, and it's creating even more confusion. Those that decided to stay home and do it the virtual way, and those that have traveled to the H-Town area. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I mean, technically, I guess technically, to a certain extent, maybe it is a hybrid, but it's really, the convention portion is not. Prior to the decision to go virtual, the committee, the pre-convention committees, the temporary committees were already meeting in person in Houston. And so that continued on, but with the gaveling into the convention, it's all virtual. So even now, in some of these SDs and some of these counties where they are gathering together to participate in a group, it's still all virtual. You're not going to have a situation where you're supposed to be in your SD caucus meeting, and everybody that's in there is going to have a voice vote and everything else. It's something literally. Every delegate, because this thing has gone virtual, must participate virtually, which is in and of itself a difficult thing. If the decision had been made to go virtual much earlier in the process, then people could have been trained. But I got to tell you, Sly Turner, he pulled a master move on the RPT, aided and abetted by Governor Greg Abbott. So it's we've been joking and we've been saying that it's amazing the lengths that Abbott will go to keep from having to get booed in public.
Yeah, but yes, I mean there are
Yeah.
those that believe that it was collusion. That's the word between Turner and Abbott to actually do this because of that very fear, the fear that he would be booed off the stage. I mean, in talking to T.J. Scott about presenting his impeachment resolution of Abbott on yesterday, one of the arguments that was presented to him in that hearing was, well, we can't make Abbott look bad. We can't make the governor look
too
bad.
late. Too late.
Yeah, that was TJ's response. We can't make him look bad. He's doing a fine job all by himself.
I mean, honestly, the only way he could be made to look any worse is to put him in a tutu and smear cow crap all over him. I mean, that's about where we're at this point. There is a certain group of people out there that he's still popular with, that kind of like his moves. But Abbott's under immense pressure from both sides, right? He's under left pressure and right pressure. The Democrats and the left think that he reopened Texas too early, right? Because at a fundamental level they don't understand economics. So whatever. But he's under pressure. He's under pressure from the right. For this shutdown and his handling of it, and somewhere there is some middle ground where people think that he's just the cat's meow. So I will tell you, and I've made no secret about it over the years. I'm not a fan of Greg Abbott. I never have been. When he was Attorney General, he did everything to stymie the primary portion of our mission, the political independence of Texas. He scuttled what was perhaps the best opportunity to get Texans to vote on it when he was AG, because he was concerned about how it would affect his run for governor. And it's been that way ever since. If we want to talk about the abysmal legislative session that we just had, everyone needs to remember that it was all based on Abbott's command from on high that there would be no controversial issues in this legislative session, because they were afraid of what had happened in the midterms in 2018. So, this is Greg Abbott's been a problem. He's been a problem on the potential for red flag laws, on and on and on. And I don't care how much grief people give me for calling him out. It's the responsibility of our organization to call out this bad behavior by these elected officials, regardless of what banner what letter they stick beside their name. I'm not going to apologize for holding government officials accountable, regardless of their party affiliation.
We're talking with Daniel Miller, of course, president of the Texas Nationalist movement. They can't do anything. I mean, we know that the temporary platform committee's report to the convention, I think it's still under debate. There's still some changes to be made. Is that the condition that we're in right now? Because there's some planks in there that we certainly need to keep our eyes on, without naming anyone specifically. But there's some popular planks in there that aren't going to be popular with the establishment that we're going to have to keep our eyes on. But what is the status of it at right now, Daniel, from what you're hearing on the ground?
Well, look, the establishment has really kind of done a number, right? And I think that some of it is just the confusion of the convention, and I think some of it may be designed and deliberate. If you go to our website at tnm.me and look in the news section, there's our final call for people to support our resolutions in conventions, right? Regardless of the convention, right? But there were two, right? We were advocating for the independence resolution that we've done in the last several conventions, and then of course our campaign finance resolution that calls for a ban on political contributions from outside of Texas. And those were, our folks went out there, man. Our supporters went out there and they absolutely crushed it in the counties. We were getting reports after the conventions, the precinct conventions, the county conventions, that these things were passing. Both of them, some instances, one would pass, the other wouldn't. Our folks were out there like they always are. They're absolutely crushing it. And, when the temporary platform committee met, they posted a Google Doc that was updated. They said this was every resolution that they had gotten that they would be considering, right? So it was supposed to be a complete aggregate of everything that had been communicated to them by the counties. And lo and behold, as we're going through and conducting the audit, of course, remember now, that they only popped this document loose a couple of days before the committee was supposed to meet, so it wasn't like we basically had the weekend. But we found discrepancies, right? We know beyond a shadow of a doubt that both of our resolutions passed in Panola County. We know that the leadership there in the Republican Party in Panola County deliberately removed our two resolutions before transmitting them to the temporary platform committee. We know beyond a shadow of a doubt that our campaign finance resolution passed in Brown County, did not get transmitted to the temporary platform committee. We know, again, beyond a shadow of a doubt, that it passed in Smith County, did not get transmitted. On and on and on it goes. So, the fact of the matter is, Claver, that, where we stand right now is we have made sure that we are properly represented in that temporary platform committee, and it appears that we may have made some headway. I will tell you that, given our experience in 2016, where we got our language in on temporary platform, the establishment moved heaven and earth, did something that was really unprecedented, swapping out members. I mean, I'm sure they've done it before, but not temporary platform committee. Yeah, so they swapped those guys. They were swapping them out on permanent for the sole purpose of extracting our language out. Right, literally. The difference in 2016 between the temporary platform, the report that came out of the temporary platform committee, and what came out of permanent was our resolution was stripped out. So
the only and exclusive one, the only difference from the temporary platform committee report and the final platform that was voted on by each individual. By the delegation as a whole was, the TNM, independence, referendum, platform plank. And that was the only one. But that led to perhaps the most emotional moment of the convention, when it was debated on the floor, when it was put forth as a motion and had to be debated.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. I mean, we had to pull, and not to go down memory lane, right? But
we should remind folks, especially those that are not aware of exactly what went down.
Well, look, we had to pull a flea flicker. Once the permanent platform committee gabbled in, jerked out our resolution, and then gabbled out. We had to pull a flea flicker, and the only way we could, do that was to, get the attention of the chair and have a floor fight. And Regina Ross went out there and she tore it up. She went up there. She was very unassuming, non-threatening to Meckler, and when he called on her, as soon as it came out of her mouth, I mean, it looked like somebody, it looked like he had been kicked in the crotch by a mule. It was hilarious. But the fact of the matter is,
and there was an uproar on the floor.
Well, yeah, people, here's what we know. There was an
uproar on the floor.
We know that every single time that Republican, people who identify as Republicans are polled on this issue of independence, it polls a majority every single time. So, that was really kind of our rub with the previous chairman, is that he wanted to continue to paint this issue as a fringe issue and paint our supporters as kooks. and he paid a price for that. He got basically run out of the chair. So, but bringing us to right now, into this convention, I mean, there is a tremendous amount of chaos. There is no telling. I mean, we've literally been, from the TNM's perspective, at this position with our resolution before, right? So we've been here. But the tail of the tape is going to be to see what happens at the next line. If we go to permanent and make it out, then we'll be able to start thinking about happy dance. But at this point, I don't know how they're going to have a convention from the TNM Stone. They're having such difficulties. I don't know how they're going to make this work.
The clock is running, and they have to get a delegation selected for the Republican National Convention. The clock is running. There's a lot of time. They only have a certain amount of time to get all of this done. Right, Daniel?
Yeah, and look, I got to give credit where credit's due. I'm not going to speak to the idea of in-person versus virtual, right? I mean, I think that the preference for many people would have been to have an in-person convention, right? That's not my call to make, right? The RPT is its own organization. It's not the TNM. We've done both in-person and virtual meetings, so we're not averse to any of them. But, I think that there was probably a lot of sentiment out there that people wanted to fight this out and have an in-person convention. And I think there were a lot of people out there that wanted to have a virtual convention, right? There's a lot of uncertainty, and there was a lot of debate back and forth about what would give maximum participation. But I will say this, I watched the presentation last night about the system and the platform that they're using. It looks quite interesting, but I would say that if you're going to have a difficult time getting your delegates credentialed and getting them on there and carrying out your convention, it really doesn't matter what it looks like or how cool it is or how it functions.
Did you have your head around on how the credentialing process was supposed to happen? Why this big choke?
I don't know what's happening. I mean, I am not purposely. I am not digging off behind the scenes because I've been in the position of having to deal with technical nightmares. And I can only imagine the kind of hell these guys are having to go through. These things are not difficult, so I'm not going to slam them for having technical difficulties. I'm just not going to do it. That said, there is a concern. This is, if you're looking at it from the practical standpoint, this was part of the criticism that people were leveling against a virtual convention and saying that they really needed to fight it out and try to have some type of in-person convention, no matter how difficult it was. In their minds and their argument, it could be no more difficult than the difficulties they were going to have trying to spin up a virtual convention in 72 hours.
The implications for the chairman's race, any guess?
Man, I don't know. I don't know where the delegates are going to sit. I will tell you this. I have watched some of these SREC meetings virtually, and I will tell you that leadership. If all the delegates were privy to watching some of these SREC meetings and seeing how some of this business is conducted, there would be wholesale leadership changes. Whether that would reach the chairmanship, I cannot speak to that. But I don't know. I don't know how leadership doesn't come out of this situation bruised, right? I mean, if you're in a situation where a sitting governor who was 6 months ago a pretty popular guy, so much so that when the TNM would post an article calling him to account for something he would do, we would have people send us hate mail, right? If that can transition in 6 months because of this into those very same people that were sending us hate mail are now joining the organization because of leadership, because of Abbott's leadership, I don't see how the leadership of the RPT doesn't get affected in the same way. Now, to what extent and what that looks like on the other side, I cannot tell you.
Okay, but the situation and the chaotic situation that we're having right now,
Yeah.
and leading up to it, who has the upper hand? West or Dickey? Does he still have the power of incumbency? Or is
I think Dickey's got the power of look. Dickey's got power of incumbency. I mean, Dickey can make a really good case, right? But I will be honest. I think that again, I think to a certain extent he takes a little bit of a hit. But look, in my eyes, both chairman candidates are problematic, and for different reasons. I can't tell you how I would vote in that particular one. And I don't really want to dive off into that one particularly because, frankly, that's sort of RPT family business, right? How that thing shakes down. But that sort of thing does matter, right? But I will be honest with you. I am less concerned about what happens with the chairman's race than I am with what happens with the SREC. The SREC has typically been sort of a stumbling block on things like Rule 44, on our resolution. I mean, there's been a lot of issues where they've been challenging, right? And we both know, I think we all know, that there is an accountability problem between the RPT and the people who fly under the Republican banner, right? They claim to be, Republicans, but they don't adhere to the platform and, rhinos, whatever you want to call them, right? But there is an accountability mechanism that exists inside the rules of the party, and the SREC has been kind of a stumbling block in exercising that accountability mechanism. That said, it's like I spoke to the Spindletop Republican women, I guess it was a couple weeks ago, and it's one of the things I said, in the TNM, we have a very clearly delineated, here's our mission, here's our principles, here's our code of conduct. We have all of these things, and they're very clearly spelled out. And anyone who purports to be a member or an officer or a leader, if they were to violate any of those, we have mechanisms to address that, up to and including expulsion from the organization. And it's something that we've exercised before. So we know beyond a shadow of a doubt that if someone is out there and they are representing our organization in any shape, form, or fashion, and they violate any of those things, we know that our organization is properly represented. And when I say our organization, I mean all of us. We're all representatives of the organization. And unfortunately, the Republican Party of Texas doesn't treat it that way. That's not how they look at it. They let these guys come in, ignore the platform, violate the platform, behave badly. There's all sorts of shenanigans. I don't think it would do us any good to recap all of our history in looking at those shenanigans. But there is a lack of accountability, and now that they passed that Rule 44 thing, they have an accountability mechanism, and it's not really being utilized to its fullest extent. So I will tell you, that's a long way, Claver, to get around to say I'm honestly less concerned about the chairman's race and far more concerned from a long-term strategic viewpoint on our issues. I'm concerned about the SREC.
how many seats need to be changed in the SREC?
Well, as frustrated as people are right now, you may see all of them changed. I mean, people are pretty furious. We're seeing that 2/3, 1/3 split still that we've seen since 2016. It's happening a lot. We need a third. I'd say you're going to need a third of them. You're going to need a third of them swapped out, and I can't give you any recommendations because again, that's we don't the TNM doesn't. That's not really what we do. that's some business. But I will tell you, we've got people on the SREC. We've got people in the leadership of the party, and they're all telling us that there needs to be some changes made.
What I'm trying to pull up right now, Daniel, is the video of our friend the Bacon Master. I wanted to see if I can get your thoughts on that. I think I have it here. Yeah, here it is. Here. I just want to pull this down and get your thoughts on this because this was I would consider not exactly the kind of decorum that you want at an RPT SREC meetings. Maybe you can give the background of what was going on here first and foremost.
Yeah, that's something you're going to want to have probably Walter on to talk about. But look, it to me is just sort of an example of some of the frustration, right? There is what I know of the backstory relates to the push to still have that in-person convention, right? To have it happen. To accept the invitation from Montgomery County to move it up there, and I can't speak to the merits of that. That's not a debate that I was involved in, but I think it really exemplifies some of the frustration that's been going on. I mean, there is this sense on the part of some people, right or wrong, that this whole push to a virtual convention was sort of preordained.
All right, so let's take a look at this video, and this is Walter West and current GOP chair James Dickey locking horns.
Much now, Mr. West.
Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman. As you know, my SD is definitely a strict non-proponent of virtual. Given in mind that there's the rest of the state we will have to consider, I totally understand. However, our Zoom meetings and the integrity within these Zoom meetings have been called into question. We've been muted. We've got chat feed that's been shut down. The public doesn't get to see that allows us to put our information back and forth. The code, who wrote the code on this stuff? There's integrity questions on the working group. Did they actually do the work as a whole, or was it a couple of people? What are we actually going to do? The bottom line is, the RPT right now just got through with a lawsuit on virtual online voting, and you made the statement, I totally understand with what you said, this is totally different. But this is not different. This is Republicans ushering in virtual online voting, and that's exactly what the Democrats will use against us when the time comes in November, whenever they want another COVID-19 fix. At the end of the day, I have filed a lawsuit in federal court. It'll be heard in the morning. I have a competent attorney that I feel very, very excited about, and he might actually be able to get something done, since it was our own attorneys, from what I understand, who changed the language that allowed this lawsuit to happen that we're going through, that totally turned out our convention. We should have never gone.
Decorum.
No.
Yeah, decorum, Mr. West. You
drink Kool-Aid.
You do not have a right to insult the General Counsel of the RPT and Briscoe Kane and Warren Norrid. Mr. West, I would be calling a sergeant at arms on you right now if we were in person.
Exactly.
Out of order. You are out of order, sir. Now, you can talk about me all you want, but to insult Briscoe Kane,
I didn't insult.
and our general counsel, I will not stand for that, sir. You will be ejected from the meeting, just as the sergeant at arms would be.
15% of stuff does not happen.
You have insulted our general counsel, and I will not stand for it.
I did insult.
You will apologize, or you will be ejected. The sergeant at arms, madam, sergeant at arms.
Yes, I would suggest that you remove Mr. West from the meeting.
Can I apologize then?
It's up to the chair. It's up to the chair.
Allow me to apologize then. Just like Shelley Luther was demanded to apologize, I will not apologize. I'll remove myself from this party. You're a fraud. Fraud.
Mr. Chairman. So, by the way, so everybody knows, the lawyer he insulted, one of the great team of lawyers who has helped the RPT tirelessly, is Warren Norrid, who was Shelley Luther's attorney, and Briscoe Kane, who was also of record as an attorney. So for anyone who's watching who does not realize just how incredibly out of line that was incredibly out of line. And
well, what was he out of line? He says he's leaving the party. It's a fraud. I mean, he was a little bit emotional there, and you know, he may have been hitting the screwball there as he exhibited. But we know Walter. We've known Walter for a long, long time, and he's a true patriot, a veteran, somebody I wouldn't want to meet in a dark alley with his experience. And he was highly perturbed about how things were going in the SREC and how things were moving towards the convention. And said he would not apologize. That was a slick move at the end right there. But why the defensiveness of James Dickey over this?
Yeah, I mean, they've probably had more emergency meetings in the past 2 months than they've had in the entire history of the SREC. I mean, I don't know that for a fact, but I would suspect that's probably the case. And you know, like I said, that, you know, tensions are running pretty high, and you're going to see things like this. Look, that was obviously not the RPT's finest moment, right? But I think there's some justification for that frustration. You know, there's you're going to see more and more of that sort of thing, maybe as the weekend progresses, because, you know, there's a tremendous amount of uncertainty. You still have, you know, delegates that can't access the convention, people that are confused. Am I supposed to go to an in-person thing in my hometown, or am I supposed to get on this computer? I mean, you've been sidelined with technical issues for weeks now. All right, so imagine now. You know, the sort of the average age of some of these delegates, and understanding their computer skills may be not really kind of up to snuff, and now you're expecting them to A, have a computer, B, know how to use a computer beyond email, but to install video conferencing software, some voting software that they can use, or a website they can go to. And then this third component called upstream, right? So there's a lot of expectation with virtually little training. And then, you know, one of the biggest arguments that came out, the argument against the virtual convention that I found that really resounded with me the most is not just the age issue, but how it's going to affect some of these rural communities that don't have reliable broadband service. You know, the inaccessibility of high-speed internet in some of these more rural areas kind of disenfranchises the rural delegates. And, you know, we want to make absolutely certain that at every stage of Texas political engagement, that the rural communities have just as strong a voice as the urban areas. You know, we know that roughly 76% of all Texas voters reside in the top 30 to 35 counties, right? There's 254 counties in Texas. And we don't ever want to be in a situation where we have a quarter of the population that basically takes care of the largest percentage of our land mass that lives out there in those rural communities. We don't ever want them to be sidelined. And so, those types of frustrations played into what you witnessed in that video there.
Daniel, thank you so much, man. I wanted you just for about 20 minutes, but we always have such a good time when we do chit chat, and this is a very important time for Texas politics, for the liberty movement, for Texas, a very important time. So you'll be keeping your eye on the progress of the.
I'll keep both of them on there because that's kind of how. I'll keep both of them because it's how it works. I can't do the thing where I point them in different directions.
But you will be you'll be watching, monitoring the progress of
better choice of words. Yes.
You'll be monitoring the progress of the platform, especially those that do have something to do with Texas. Daniel, thanks so much. I really appreciate it. For all of you watching right now on Facebook.com/Raging Elephants Radio, I do have some more special reports coming up. And just to say toodaloo to Daniel, there it is right there. TNM.me. Just to say toodaloo to Daniel. It's great to be back. Had some technical issues, as Daniel alluded to, that has kept me down for weeks. He has been one of the ones that's been able to assist me in these difficult times, along with the amazing Doc Green, of course, the AV expert. And I gotta say, in all honesty, the ultimate solution was the Lord Jesus Christ in some miraculous, technical, electronic, spiritual thing. We're back. Give me some time to get back into the groove, but we'll do some more special reports like this. Keep your phone handy so that you can have your notifications hit the phone whenever RER goes live. Really appreciate your attention, and we'll see you even probably later on today, but we'll be getting these special reports as we're able to get Liberty Movement activists to call in on Raging Elephants Radio, the rebellious voice of Texas Liberty. Thanks so much for joining me for this. Stay tuned. Doc and the girls from Texas are coming up.